of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Do we have a motion to adopt the meeting agenda tonight?
Motion to adopt the meeting agenda.
All in favor? Meeting's adopted. Let's get underway. We have a couple of special proclamations and guests in the audience tonight. First up is to welcome our delegate, Marcus Simon, here doing our special presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Mayor and members of the City Council. It's great to be back here again to vet some of our outstanding Falls Church City residents and recognize, I heard them chatting a little earlier, like a Lifetime Achievement Award, but truly a lifetime of dedication to improving the lives of residents of the City of Falls Church and the Falls Church area here in Northern Virginia. So it's my pleasure to be able to join you again tonight to present these proclamations to our two guests. Let me start with Ed Salzberg. Ed is, as you all know, in January of 2024, retired from the Economic Development Authority of the City of Falls Church after serving the city for more than 42 years. And so we put in a House Joint Resolution 277, and I'm pleased to say that this passed unanimously with no negative votes cast. Not always the case, but
be a first.
and I'll go ahead and just read it. It's not terribly long, but I think we want to hear about this. So it says, whereas in January 2024, Ed Salzberg retired from the Economic Development Authority of the City of Falls Church after serving the city for more than 42 years. Looking at some of the members of City Council, I'm wondering if they've been around that long. And whereas Ed Salzberg was first appointed to the Economic Development Authority of Falls Church on November 9th, 1981, when I was 11 years old. It doesn't say that here. I've just added that part. And then,
So was I, by the way.
and then, it says so was he. And then 2 years later was appointed to serve on the newly formed Industrial Development Authority of Falls Church. And whereas Ed Salzberg returned to the EDA in 1999 when the entity was merged with the IDA, continuing to pursue the mission of advising the Falls Church City Council on economic development issues and proposals impacting the locality. And whereas with the EDA, Ed Salzberg has helped oversee an array of functions to further the growth and prosperity of Falls Church, including community education programs, research and analysis, property transactions, tax-exempt financing, and other projects and programs that promote business and investment in the city. And whereas Ed Salzberg has earned the esteem of his fellow members on the EDA, I think a number of them are here with us tonight, and other community leaders through his integrity, thoughtfulness, commitment to civic engagement, and willingness to collaborate and build consensus with others. And whereas Ed Salzberg has demonstrated steadfast dedication to community building, financial sustainability, and destination placemaking through his efforts with the EDA, supporting a great number of construction and infrastructure projects that have burnished the city's reputation as a wonderful place to live, work, and play. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates, the Senate concurring, that the General Assembly hereby commend Ed Salzberg on the occasion of his retirement from the Economic Development Authority of the City of Falls Church, and be it resolved further that the clerk of the House of Delegates prepare a copy of this resolution, there it is, for presentation to Ed Salzberg as an expression of the General Assembly's appreciation for his contributions to the City of Falls Church, and best wishes in his future endeavors. So, with that, Ed. Did you want a minute for rebuttal, or?
No, let me just say that some of those things were correct. But I want to say that it's been my pleasure to serve the city, and I'm really honored to have been recognized along with some real luminaries here. Phil Duncan, Dave Tarter was recognized, Christopher, the police chief, and then especially Carol DeLong, who was mayor when I was appointed. So my first engagement with the city was with Carol DeLong, and she's such a luminary that I'm just honored, to be recognized at the same time she is.
All right. I think we'll do it. Do you want the picture now, or do you want to do both?
Let's do one now.
Let's do it now. Yep. Come on up.
And feel free to invite your family, Ed. Would you like to invite your family to come up too?
Shannon, you might want to join us.
And EDA?
EDA?
Yeah.
The team.
All right.
Thank you.
And before you leave, I'm sure we have comments up here, but I love how humble you were when you compared yourself to all those other luminaries in the city. But I think that's one thing that's really quite special about you is how wise and balanced and thoughtful you've been about economic development and really been a visionary all on your own on economic development. And so much of, I think, of this flourishing city can be traced back to your 42 years of record service. So thank you so much on behalf of the community. Any other comments? Okay, thank you.
Ed, I just want to say thank you for all your years of service. I know you and Sharon were the pillars of the community for the Chamber of Commerce several years ago, and your long knowledge of so much of Falls Church is always really helpful when we're trying to figure out what comes next or what came before, and you know so much. So thank you for sharing it, and thank you for your willingness to be part of this community and take a leadership role.
Thank you. All righty, take it away.
All right, and so we also have somebody, it's a little bit of a different one here. It's not a government employee or council member or member of any kind of city board or authority, but somebody who's a member of one of our community partners in Homestretch. So Christopher Fay, if you want to come on up. I want to tell, before I read the resolution, two quick stories about Chris Fay before I get into the meat of it. One, Chris is one of my favorite people in the world for a very important reason. Every now and then, those of us that are politicians are asked to donate something to a silent auction or whatnot, and every now and then we donate like lunch with a legislator, right? Come have lunch, and then there's always the fear, of course, that nobody's going to bid on it and that you're going to end up having lunch all by yourself. So Chris was one of those folks that actually bid on lunch with a legislator, and I remember, I think we had the Bar Taco out in, am I remember that right, over in the Mosaic District, and Chris took his opportunity to, not only did he make a donation to charity, but he bent my ear about Homestretch and how we could work together and be better partners over lunch. So I was happy to have somebody rescue me and not have me be there with the zero bid category. And on a more serious note, Homestretch, and Chris has heard me tell this story several times. I told him to it at lunch. You know, as an employer in my office over in McLean, I had an employee who was having sort of a recurring problem, kept asking for salary advances, and every time she got one salary advance paid off, was asking for another one, was the one, if there's any leftover lunch from our group lunch, she was always taking it home for some reason, and people started to notice something was a bit off, and she actually became a client of Homestretch and went through the whole counseling process and stabilization. She had some issues at home that I wasn't aware of as an employer, but really showed me the value of Homestretch, not just to their clients, but to the whole community. And to somebody like me, that was a problem I was trying to manage as an employer that was a distraction from the core work that we were trying to do, what we were trying to accomplish as a business, and to have Homestretch make that person a more productive, capable employee by getting rid of some of their distractions at home and providing them the services and things that they need was just invaluable. And so I like to tell that story every chance I get, because Homestretch, again, it's not just for their clients. It makes all of us, whether you think you'll ever be in that situation where you need their services personally or not, we all benefit from the fact that they're there directly or indirectly, and sometimes closer than others. So like I said, thank you. I want to tell that story. But Chris has decided that he is moving on from Homestretch, but not without some recognition from the General Assembly of Virginia. We're not going to let you go that easily. And so also Joint Resolution 279, and fortunately another one that passed unanimously, not to take anything away from Ed's unanimous vote, but also passed this one unanimously. And so I'll go ahead and read this to you all. It says, whereas in September of 2023, Christopher Fay retired as executive director of the nonprofit organization Homestretch after 17 years of stable leadership and diligent efforts to end homelessness and break the cycle of poverty in Falls Church. And whereas Christopher Fay began his career working with homeless families in New York City, then relocated to Washington, D.C., where he joined the Milton S. Eisenhower Foundation. And whereas 4 years later, Christopher Fay discovered Homestretch, which seeks to provide comprehensive services that address the root causes of homelessness and poverty, and became the organization's executive director. And whereas under Christopher Fay's leadership, Homestretch gave numerous individuals and families the support they needed to make swift, transformational changes, the organization provides temporary housing and the tools and education for clients to achieve self-sufficiency. And whereas Christopher Fay proudly created an environment that allows Homestretch to offer individualized services and create dynamic plans that best suit the specific needs of each client. And whereas Christopher Fay's achievements have strengthened the community for generations to come, according to a study in 2023, more than 90% of Homestretch graduating families never returned to homelessness, and a majority of families sought further education and built skills to enhance their financial stability. And whereas, upon his well-earned retirement, Christopher Fay was named Executive Director Emeritus and plans to continue seeking new opportunities to serve the Falls Church community while spending more time with his beloved family. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the House of Delegates, the Senate concurring, that the General Assembly hereby commend Christopher Fay on the occasion of his retirement from Homestretch. And be it resolved further that the Clerk of the House of Delegates prepare a copy of this resolution for presentation to Christopher Fay as an expression of the General Assembly's admiration for his personal and professional achievements. And it's signed by Delegates Simon, Hope, Lopez, Martinez, and Seabold, as well as Senators Boysko, Eben, Favola, Marsden, and Salim, and signed by the Clerk of the House of Delegates. Christopher Fay, here you are.
Thank you. Thank you. I do want to say that as the face of Homestretch, I get the recognition, but it is really the staff of Homestretch and the clients themselves that do the work. So I am standing here just as one person, but on behalf of all the staff and all the board members and even members in this room who have long supporters of Homestretch. There are people here who have given money, time, and effort to our cause. And even though I'm retiring, the work goes on. So I hope you will continue to support Homestretch and its new leader, Barfons. We are very grateful to the city of Falls Church. I don't know that you could create a homeless program out of scratch in a city like this, but we did, and we've been welcomed every year. You have kindly welcomed us into your midst and supported us through all those years, and that's a rarity, so thank you. Also want to thank Marcus. He's been a great friend, not just to me, but to Homestretch. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are you going to do a picture?
Yes. I'd like to invite...
Okay. Try. I try.
Oh, really? Okay. Okay, thank you. It had to be that picture. Hopefully it turned out.
Before you go, Chris, I think a few of us have comments as well. Ms. Connolly?
Chris, congratulations. Thank you for the work you've done on behalf of so many people in Falls Church. One of my very favorite things that I have been able to do in Falls Church is because of you, when you've invited us to attend graduation events or your fundraising event in May, and to hear how movingly you speak of the families that are helped by the many people at Homestretch. Your leadership has been unparalleled, and thank you for that.
Yes, thank you for really touching so many lives and leading with such humility and leading with your heart. We're so proud to have Homestretch as part of the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us, Delegate Simon.
Thank you guys for having me again.
You're welcome to stick around or enjoy your evening. Alrighty. Well, that was special. Next up, we have a proclamation declaring September 5th, 2024 as Northern Virginia Transportation Commission's 60th anniversary day in the city of Falls Church. And Ms. Underhill will do the honors. Welcome, Ms. Matisse.
Thank you. Whereas the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, created by the General Assembly of Virginia in 1964, will celebrate its 60th anniversary on September 5th, 2024. And whereas the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, NVTC, began with an initial district of 5 jurisdictions and has grown to include a population of approximately 2 million people in a territory covering 1,000 square miles, connected by a robust transit network, providing residents with 1.5 million transit trips each week on Metro Rail, Virginia Railway Express, local and express bus services, and paratransit services. And whereas NVTC consistently promotes transit innovations leading to improved efficiency, environmental stewardship, and customer service, including advanced fare payment systems, hybrid and zero-emission bus technologies, improved bus speeds on local and interstate routes, bus stop improvements, and policy considerations for fare-free transit. And whereas NVTC routinely leads regional planning efforts to provide coordinated emergency responses by Northern Virginia's transit systems to facilitate faster transit reactions and better communication with customers, police, fire departments, and other public safety personnel during emergencies and transit system shutdowns. And whereas NVTC provides ongoing and extensive data analysis of Northern Virginia public transit trends to better understand how our transit network serves our region in terms of service area coverage, connectivity, ridership, service levels, and accessibility. And whereas NVTC staff provides valuable policy and technical assistance to the City of Falls Church, helping staff to leverage and multiply transit resources. And whereas the City of Falls Church has served as a jurisdictional member with a designated seat since the inception of NVTC, and whereas in support of the NVTC's mission, the City of Falls Church has a long history of City Council leadership on the commission.
Now therefore, I, Letty Hardy, Mayor of the City of Falls Church, Virginia, do hereby proclaim September 5th, 2024 as Northern Virginia Transportation Commission 60th Anniversary Day in the City of Falls Church and commend the Northern Virginia Transportation Commission on its decades of long service to the region. Congratulations. Thank you and welcome.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you so much. And indeed, the city has been at the heart and the core of NVTC since its inception. The leadership from across this dais and also today online has been just absolutely fantastic. The Northern Virginia Transportation Commission, our mission, our vision is focused on public transit and making it better for all the residents and businesses and those who come to Northern Virginia. And so the ability to take each individual jurisdiction that serves on NVTC and provide a regional voice is absolutely right at the core of what we do. There's so many things that I think, we work very closely with the city staff. Cindy Mester over there and I probably talk a lot more than perhaps even once a week on public transit issues, because we know that is a big part of how people within this city move, especially in the relationship with WMATA. So I greatly appreciate the recognition of NVTC. There are a lot of good things. Hopefully we keep coming in and talking about wonderful things going on Route 7 and making that bus service even better for the city, and a lot of other things in our relationship with WMATA, what have you. So again, I appreciate the recognition. 60 years, there's been a lot of things. We have an amazing future, and the fact that we can all come together and work regionally is incredibly important. I do need to make a shout out to our board members from the city. Mr. Snyder is our vice chair, and his alternate on the board is Ms. Underhill. And so it's just fantastic to have the engagement of the city and sitting in all the things that we do at NVTC. So thank you.
Great. Well, congratulations. We have a proclamation for you to receive if you'd like to come up.
Sure.
Okay. I'm sure Mr. Snyder has comments, but first, public transit and in general, multimodal being a top priority for Falls Church and the region. So important than ever, thank you for the leadership and the role that NVTC plays. Mr. Schneider?
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. And I think supporting transit for environmental equity and economic reasons is in the DNA of the City of Falls Church. And I want to thank Justine. I want to thank all the members of prior councils and this council for supporting the work of NVTC. In a sense, it's probably more important now than it's ever been. NVTC will be the key coordinator of Northern Virginia as we enter the negotiations and how best to provide for long-term funding for Metro and our other transit systems throughout the Washington Metro region. And Kate Mattice, our current executive director, is absolutely a person with unique experience and expertise to lead that coordination effort. So again, thanks to everyone who has supported NVTC through the years, the current support from this council. And we've got our work cut out on Metro funding. And I know that Caroline Leon and I attended something over the weekend that underscores the importance of Northern Virginia coordinating through NVTC. So thanks again to everyone involved, and thank you, Kate. Thank you, Cindy, for being a great staff element in our overall transit picture. Thanks.
Great, Ms. Underhill?
Just wanted to thank you so much for your dedication to public transit. A lot of the work that you do, or some of the work, goes unseen. And so it's the role that NVTC plays in coordinating our region to work together on public transit, whether it be Metro or bus service, is so essential. So thank you for leading those efforts forward. And I'm very excited to see the documentary that's coming out about NVTC, I believe in a few months.
Indeed, and in fact, included in that, we had the opportunity to interview Ms. DeLong prior to her passing, and so she's actually featured in that documentary. So that was very special.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Great. I think that's it for special presentations tonight. Do we have anyone in the audience here to receive an oath of office, Madam Clerk?
We are actually caught up on oaths of office for our board and commission members, but would you like me to let folks know the openings we have on some of our boards?
Sure, that's a good time to make that plug.
Yeah. So if you're interested in our boards and commissions, if you go to our website, fallschurchva.gov/BC, you can see the different boards we have and find out about them, find an application, figure out when you can attend a meeting. We're particularly right now looking for some members of our Board of Equalization, and that group reviews residents' requests to appeal their assessments for their real estate. So it's a really important job. It requires some training, which is provided. Also provides a stipend. So if you're interested in anything like that, our Citizens Transportation Commission, CACT, Citizens Advisory Commission on Transportation is looking for some folks too, if you have some interest in that. Also, our retirement board, looking for somebody that might have some legal experience. We also have openings on Architectural Advisory Board, our Aurora House Citizens Advisory Committee, and we're always looking for folks that are interested in different things as terms come up on different boards. We interview as many people who are interested, so we would love to have some talent from the community. And you can also email me, cityclerk@fallschurchva.gov, if you have any questions, and we can help you out with that.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to receipt of public comments. Madam Clerk, can you start with the summary of written comments, please?
I certainly can. Thank you. I was so busy talking about boards and commissions, I didn't pull that up. We're getting there. I'm a little slow tonight. Let's see. So these are the summary, this is a summary of written comments we received since your last meeting. There we go. Bill Ackerman of 149 South Spring Street and a member of the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board wrote in support of the proclamation that you issued declaring July as Recreation and Parks Month in the city, and he outlined the importance of providing these services to residents. Sally Cole and Paul Flush of 206 Southwest Street provided comments following city staff's meeting with West Street neighbors regarding options in the proposed bicycle master plan and expressed concern about any loss of parking on West Street. Stacy Evers and Peter Cuniff of 819 Fulton Avenue wrote with concerns about a newly constructed pedestrian crossing at Fulton Avenue and North Spring Street. I believe that staff corresponded with them. Lucas Filietti of 455 South Maple Avenue wrote regarding the attempted coup in Bolivia and urged support for the people of Bolivia as a Bolivian American living in the city. Paul Flush of 206 Southwest Street provided 2 emails expressing his concerns about construction at Founders Row 2. John Fritsch of 603 Lincoln Avenue provided comments and questions regarding the greening of Lincoln Avenue project. Andrew Olison of 615 Lincoln Avenue provided an update on traffic injuries from the first half of 2024. Robert Patillo of 1011 Hillwood Avenue shared information about a traffic accident and continued concerns about traffic safety and loud vehicles on Hillwood Avenue. The Village Improvement and Preservation Society provided comments on proposed zoning code changes regarding accessory dwellings. Catherine Williams of Falls Plaza Condominiums wrote in opposition to a bike path through the condominium property, and staff corresponded with her regarding the proposed bike master plan. The Economic Development Authority wrote in support of the proposed zoning code change regarding a commercial parking reduction in specific instances and recommended that the area subject to reduction be increased from 1,000 to 1,200 square feet. The Housing Commission recommended in response to the Supreme Court's decision making it easier for jurisdictions to fine, ticket, or arrest people for living unsheltered, that the City Council pass a resolution supporting the unhoused who live in and around the City of Falls Church. And finally, a petition was received in support of quality of life policing.
Great, thank you. How about live comments now or online?
Yes, and we do limit comments to 3 minutes, and there will be a timer when you see a yellow. You have the yellow light. You have 30 seconds to wrap up. Little guidance. So first, we have Alexander Maricola, followed by Anand Colby.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Alexander Maricola. I live on Chanel Terrace, and I'm going to speak in favor of the modest reform to the off-street parking calculation. Off-street parking minimums are seemingly without purpose. I can find no study which shows their benefit, but can find several which list their inadequacies. Parking minimums greatly increase the cost of development, relegate land to unprofitable use, motivate the paving over of green spaces, and even increase traffic by encouraging the use of cars to reach a destination. I have been disheartened by some of the comments I have heard concerning this matter. It's too blunt a tool. The schedule is too aggressive. The study backing the reform is outdated. I hope that City Council can see the ludicrousy of these statements, as they can all be leveled with greater effect at the current minimum parking scheme. The minimum parking scheme hasn't been updated in more than half a century. When these minimums were enacted, Falls Church had half the population it does now, and mass transit options like Metro Rail and Metro Bus did not exist. How's that for outdated? Frankly, these minimums are incredibly blunt and an aggressive tool which leaves slim alternatives for development in Falls Church. If businesses deem that they need more parking, then they will provide it themselves. It makes little sense to make this determination for them and force the cost of starting a business in Falls Church up to an unworkable level. The proposal to exclude the first 1,000 square feet in some circumstances is a good start, but that's all it is. I hope City Council will consider further reforms on this outdated and blunt scheme or remove this questionable relic of a bygone era. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your comment.
Thank you. Next, we have Anand Colby, followed by Charlie O'Hara.
Welcome.
Good evening. My name is Anand Colby, and I'm a senior at Meridian High School. Today, I want to talk to you about the Share the Air initiative. I serve as a student representative on the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board. I'm grateful today to be joined by Charlie O'Hara and Daniel Schlitt, who have supported and encouraged me during this process. Recently, my fellow student Caroline and I have been in contact with representatives from Share the Air, a Virginia lobbying initiative. Share the Air is an initiative launched in 2019 under the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth. They are committed to promoting 100% tobacco-free public parks in Virginia, with hopes to lobby Richmond in 2025 for legislation. Share the Air has already partnered with 21 other cities and counties with empirically positive impacts in places such as Ashland and King George County. In fact, as per a press release this morning, they just partnered with James City County as well. Directors in these counties noticed positive impacts in their parks, and parents in the counties noted they were glad the signs were up as they created safer environments for their children. So, why do we here have a need for less vapes, e-cigarettes, and smoking in parks? For one, secondhand smoke. Tobacco smoke is one of the most common asthma triggers. 1 in 15 Virginians and over 125,000 youth in Virginia currently have asthma. Also, littering tobacco products poses an ingestion risk for young children, and e-cigarettes emit harmful chemicals like diacetyl and heavy metals like nickel and lead. Beyond all that, 97% of surveyed Virginians by Share the Air believe in tobacco-free outdoors, and 91% believe that tobacco litter negatively impacts the outdoor experience. Regardless of the health facts I just presented, the city and the adults of our community have a responsibility to maintain a safe environment for our kids. We do not want our youth playing in parks with cigarette butts. We want our parks to come across as clean, healthy, and welcoming for all ages. So what would the city do? Recreation and Parks would implement signage as provided by the Share the Air Foundation. The signage is free. It suggests to readers to refrain from smoking and vaping in the public spaces. Relevant staff would also be made aware of the program as well. Here, we want to create a lasting youth-led program. As you may know, there was a student-led initiative in the past which aimed to accomplish a similar goal, but it dissipated. Now, we want to create a concrete campaign so our student representatives can pass on the leadership torch and continue to make changes in our community for years to come. Our young voices deserve to have tangible and positive impacts. So what are we asking from you? Recreation and Parks is ready to move forward with the program. We've already drafted a contract with Share the Air, which they require all their partners to sign. Due to Dillon's rule and based on board concern, we removed all of the forceful language from signage and the contract in order to stay within our legal boundaries. Danny Schlitt has already approved the contract, and so is Sally Gillette, the city attorney. She has okayed it legally, and now we simply need your approval to move forward with signing it and to begin the implementation phase as soon as possible. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for your initiative and bringing this forward to us.
Next, we have Charlie O'Hara, followed by Joseph Shirizzi.
Good evening. Charlie O'Hara, 2717 Welcome Drive, Falls Church, Virginia, and I am currently the chair of the Advisory Board of Recreation and Parks. And looking at the council, I see that the majority of you have served at one time or another as the liaison to our board. I'm here today just to thank Anand and Caroline for the work they've put into this initiative. It's something that's been part of our program probably coming on 8 or 9 years now with our student reps. And it's something we are very supportive of, and we're very pleased that the student reps that we work with are also supportive of this program. Anand and Caroline is now moved off of our board on her way to college, but she has graced us with her little brother to have on our board next year, and we're looking forward to that and for having Anand for 1 more year. So again, just want to thank Anand and Caroline for the work they've done, and we look forward to working with council on this issue and moving forward with the legislative regulations to someday be able to ban smoking permanently in our parks. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you for your long service on Rec and Parks as well.
Thank you, but after hearing about Ed, it's a long way still to go.
We do have some questions, I think, on this one. Ms. Connolly?
Yes, I'm just wondering what I know Ms. Gillette has looked at this too. Is there something the council has to approve, or what's our role in this?
We can simply, I think Danny can sign the contract ourselves and move forward. We just wanted your approval to make sure you're aware that this is a campaign that the city's endorsing and we're putting our name on this contract.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Well
I remember
done.
meeting the Y Street folks at VML last year when this came up and introduced the Share There. So I was very impressed by their organization and all the work and the materials, and it seemed like a really great turnkey option for us. So thank you to the students for moving this forward, because it's a great idea.
And the work was all theirs. They met with them, dealt with the contract. It was all a student-led initiative with some help, just some pushing from those of us on the board.
Yeah, I guess if staff is looking for direction, I'm certainly supportive.
Yeah.
I think as a former liaison to Rec and Parks, it's something that we've wanted to do, and so I'm glad that there's a bigger organization behind this local effort as well.
Thank you. And I'd also like to acknowledge Brendan Kelly from the advisory board, who's also with us today and has been supportive of this process. Thank you.
Do we have other comments up here?
When I was the liaison for Parks and Rec, I remember when we first were discussing this, and so in retrospect, this has been a year of research and due diligence and conversations, and so I really appreciate all that effort. And when I first heard this, I was supportive, and I just need you to know that my response would be, this makes sense. I would totally support it. Yeah.
I'll also add that as the current liaison to Park and Recs, I've enjoyed seeing, our student reps in action. They also brought in a presentation on the Share the Air program that the board got to review. And so thank you again for your advocacy around this and for making tonight so clear for the public to understand why this meant so much to you in a very clear synopsis that you provided for everyone. So thanks again to you and Caroline, and to the board members that are here, and to those who couldn't make it tonight, but I know are supportive of the effort and really appreciative of all the work that you put into this. So thanks again.
Great. Well, when we launch this, we'd welcome you back to kind of show us the signage and show the community the new campaign. So thank you again. Okay, do we have other public comments tonight?
Yes, Joseph Shirizi.
Welcome.
Hello. I'm Joseph Shirizi. I live on Gundry Drive. My comments this evening are just for myself and do not represent any organizations. Last week at our Environmental Sustainability Council meeting, members looked at the city's rules for off-street parking requirements. I learned from Kurt that many of these were not actually updated since the 1960s. And I think that it's important to mention when we talk about land use and land use laws that are left over from the 60s and earlier, that Virginia had not completed getting rid of racial segregation when those land use laws were put into place. So I think that should be taken into account when we talk about updating our land use laws and what we're allowed to do with different spaces. It seems pretty absurd to me that we would have a transportation policy still in place, and that's what parking policy is. It's transportation policy. It seems pretty silly that we would have that in place left over from a time before e-bikes or bike share were invented. And also, Metro didn't even exist then, so that's these are quite old. We really need an update. I don't see why we should be making it harder for small businesses to set up shop in Falls Church with unreasonable parking requirements. This has a lot of downstream effects that are much larger than just how many people are driving or the number of cars on our streets, or really just how many parking spaces there are. For example, the city currently has a requirement of one parking spot per 125 square feet of floor area for kindergartens and daycares. The number one reason that women have left the workforce since 2020 is because of the cost of childcare, right? And so that's a societal issue that we're dealing with. And because of our parking requirements left over from 1960, we're actually making it harder for women to enter the workforce. Right, and those are many, just one example, right, of an unintended consequence of leaving existing zoning, existing parking requirements as they are. So as the bill to provide parking relief to small businesses and Falls churches before you, I know we already had a first reading. I hope that you'll keep that in mind. It's not just the consequences of our change, it's also the consequences of the current policy remaining in place, and who is that helping and who is that hurting. I think it's hurting our community quite a lot, and we should take the advice of the ESC, of city staff, of the local economic boards who have all voted in support of lowering parking minimums and giving some relief to our local businesses. It starts at 1,000 square feet of relief. I think there should be no ceiling on that and just get rid of the minimums entirely. But the ESC supported 1,500, so maybe that's a place to start. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have others?
Nope, that was it. Thank you.
Great. Well, let's move on to report of the city manager. Mr. Schultz?
Thank you, Mayor Hardy, members of City Council, members of the community. Listed on the agenda are two items that would be part of the city manager's report, and the first was an update on the council chambers art project, and that we're going to ask to reschedule to August 5th. Our staff lead on that is Holly Irwin, and she's under the weather tonight. And so we'll ask for a later date on that discussion. And the headline for the city manager's report is a report from Caitlin Sobsey on our capital improvements program and the status of projects. Before we get to Caitlin's presentation, I did want to just note two other things before turning it over. First is Zach Bradley has informed me that he will be stepping down as the Director of Public Works for the City of Falls Church to take a position with Arlington County. His last day is August 9th. We're going to miss Zach very much. Zach leaves us with a Public Works Department, I think, that is very productive, has very high morale, and is getting a lot done. And you'll see that tonight with the report that Caitlin will deliver with the CIP. Our Deputy City Manager, Andy Young, and I have met with Zach and Zach's two deputies, Tara Hoff, who's also on this call, and Herb Holmes, to plan through the transition period. And we're also putting a recruitment out on the street to recruit a new Public Works Director. But I did want to take the opportunity tonight, the first meeting of the City Council since Zach made his announcement, to thank Zach for his service and for all the good work that he's been able to accomplish here. And I think we had some fun along the way as well. I wanted to note for accessory dwellings, the City Council has been briefed on concepts for addressing accessory dwellings in the city. In other words, in single-family homes, to make it possibly easier through our zoning code for property owners to have accessory dwelling units on their property, either as a detached building or inside their existing house. We're really very much at the conceptual level, and this month of July is a time to get some community feedback on the concept before we start putting pen to paper and thinking about possible code amendments. We will have two this week, and let me just note when those are. We will have one, on Tuesday, July 23rd at 6:30 p.m. to 8 p.m., and that's at Mary Riley Stiles Public Library, and a second on Sunday, July 28th from 2:30 p.m. to 4 p.m., also at the Mary Riley Stiles Public Library. After getting some public input through this and other methods, staff will then come to City Council on September 3rd to discuss some ideas for code language and get council feedback on that. Once we start drafting code, we'll have many more opportunities for the public to be informed, but also to provide input on that effort. And then the last thing I will note is the bike planning effort. I want to thank all the residents that showed up for the 3 walking tours that we had, one for the east-west connection to connect up with our Meridian High School campus. We had a walking tour on Southwest Street and another one on Northwest Street. We'll be getting communication out to all those who attended and the residents in those areas to inform them on next steps in the process. And some of those next steps will be to meet with the City Council on August 5th to discuss some of the ideas that have come out through those public meetings, to get council input on those. Then we'll do some additional work on that, and we're working towards a September adoption date ultimately for an update to the city's bike plan. But I wanted to provide that update for the public as well. So now if I could turn it over to Ms. Sobsey for a review of our capital projects. Ms. Sobsey, thank you.
Thanks, Wyatt. All right. Good evening, Mayor Hardy and members of the council. My name is Caitlin Sobsey, and I'm the Capital Improvements Program Coordinator. Tonight, I'm presenting a brief quarterly update on the CIP. This report to you represents the first CIP update since the adoption of the fiscal year 2025 to 2030 CIP budget earlier this year, as well as the first update since the 2-year strategic priorities of the council. Previous updates over the last 2 years were provided in conjunction with the work plan, so going forward, we'll report these updates separately as requested by council. Given the robust plan outlined in the fiscal year 25 CIP, staff has been developing internal improvements in order to enhance overall program management and project delivery. These are outlined here in lines 15 through 25. They have been progressively rolled out over the last 4 months and include improved reporting methods to track project status and updates, a streamlined monthly project delivery meeting to foster better coordination and support the project management staff on scope and schedules, as well as enhanced oversight of project funding, budget, and contracts to keep projects on track. Our goal is to improve project delivery, but also enhance communication and transparency of all capital projects. On the next page, page 2, there are 35 active projects captured in this report, as well as 9 projects which are funded as of fiscal year 25 and are currently in early stages of development. The breakdown of programs for those projects is provided here. We are still employing the traffic light method of reporting project status. Each project is defined as green, yellow, or red, green being on target, yellow at risk, and red behind target. Completed projects are also classified as green. Those projects will be included in the quarterly updates immediately following their completion, and then we'll remove those from the next update. On page 3, this is the quarterly summary of project updates as of July. This is also detailed in attachment 1, where there are budget details provided for each project as well. I'm not gonna go through all of it. I'm just gonna hit a couple of highlights. The 2 complete projects that we have as of this update are the facilities projects, Aurora House Fire Alarm and City Hall Emergency Power. Both of those were completed earlier this month in July of 2024. In construction right now, I'm just going to talk about a few projects in construction. We have WNOD trail crossings. Those will be substantially complete in August. August 29th is the date. I believe majority of the pavement, curb, and gutter work was complete in July at all 4 intersections, but we're just waiting on some final paving, signage, and the lighting installation that will happen by August 29th. ARPA multimodal projects, crosswalks and ramps, those are in construction right now and should be closing out by the end of this month. Berman Park is going into construction. That's on your consent agenda for tonight, the contract approval for Berman Park. So pending that approval, we'll start construction of those crossings in September of this year. And Broad Street Hawks signals, that's one of our projects that's classified as red due to the significant schedule delays, but it is in construction as of last month, June 2024, with an estimated completion in November. I'm just going to talk about a couple of our reds and yellows. North Washington and Columbia is also technically in construction. We're sort of in pre-construction right now. We have a contract awarded, and September is our construction start date with an estimated completion in March of 2025. That is also classified as red due to the history of significant schedule delays. South Maple and Annandale, trying to wrap up the right-of-way in next month, August. We have some complications there that we're at risk of being behind schedule on those, but we're trying to push really hard in the next couple weeks to meet our August contract advertisement and award dates to stay on track for that project. And two more yellow projects, Wallace Street sidewalks and bus shelters. Those are also two of the ARPA multimodal projects. We're having some right-of-way complications on those as well. Maybe a 1 or 2 month schedule delay as of right now. Still pushing to deliver those in the fall of 2024 and summer 2025 respectively. On the next page, page 4, as of this report, 80% of the 35 active projects are classified as green or on target. These projects are anticipated to be delivered on time. On line 74, we have a quarterly trend summary. There is no trend yet, as this is only July data shown here. I wasn't able to compare data from, some of you remember we had in the previous CIP snapshot, we had sort of like a quarterly trend where we had, quarterly updates reported and compared. I'm not able to compare those because if you remember, those included all of the 2-year work plan initiatives and some of the CIP projects. So it was kind of apples to oranges. So on the next quarterly update in October, when we're back, that comparison analysis will be shown here. On line 77, we talk about the budget details that are provided in the attachment. This is to increase visibility and understanding of project expenditures. These are also tracked in more detail on the internal monthly reports that we have, with increased oversight of budget to monitor every single project closely in an effort to reduce funding shortfalls. On the next page, page 5, we have the project development summary of new fiscal year 25 projects, which are funded as of now, but still early in development. We've had kickoff meetings for a couple of these projects. We anticipate on the next update that many of these will be moving to the active projects list. On line 115, I've also included 2 recent grant applications that we submitted. Those are in the attachments with tonight's staff report, just for public awareness. We did receive confirmation in June that we are going to be selected for the technical assistance panel, the TAP grant for master planning of the Gordon Road Triangle area. And page 6 is the conclusion. I think the highlight, what should be highlighted tonight, I think, is staff is building on past CIP practices while incorporating the new internal process improvements to enhance CIP delivery. We're aligning our objectives and goals with the council's strategic priorities to ensure greater transparency and accountability in the CIP. We've been working really hard. It's been full speed ahead with no slowing down in sight. And we're enthusiastic about the growth ahead and committed to continuous improvements in project management and delivery to achieve those goals and better serve the community. But we'll also keep refining the process, the monthly internal process, as well as the quarterly reporting process to council. So some changes may occur as we continue to refine that. Continued improvement over perfection, or whatever that saying is. So we welcome feedback from you guys on how to make that continued improvement, and support from the council as well as we continue to grow while managing one of the largest CIPs in the city's history. Thank you. And I'm ready for questions if you have them.
Great, thank you. I'm sure we have questions. So first of all, I just wanted to say congrats, Zach, on your new opportunity. I think clearly the breadth of the CIP shows how much work we have going through public work, so we really appreciate your leadership and your team's work on getting us to this point. So with that, questions? Ms. Leon?
I'll probably break mine up into a couple of batches so I don't...
Mic on.
Sorry. I'll probably break my questions up into a couple of batches. So let me start with my first set. Thank you so much for that overview. First set are just trying to understand and confirm what it is I'm hearing when I'm reading. So in the transportation area, of the 18 projects, we've got 4 red and 3 yellow. I'm unclear if any of those red and yellows have a impact on funding, which means we're going to need more money to fix the red and yellow to make it green.
Not at this time.
So it's all schedule related.
Yeah, a lot of those red and yellows in transportation are just legacy projects that we've experienced just a history of schedule delays and a history of some funding shortfalls as well, but we've solved for all of those now.
Okay.
We're really just trying to finish those, deliver them.
We're rooting for you to finish.
Get them off the books.
Yes. Now, there's a subset on the second attachment on transportation where the current phase indicates that it's all ARPA multimodal projects.
Correct.
What does that mean as a phase?
So those projects, we're tracking those project schedules and updates separately, separately being the 3 parklets and then also the transportation ones, which I think are like bus shelters. They're on the second side, but the bus shelters, crosswalks and ramps, Hillwood Ave sidewalks, and Wallace Street sidewalks. Those are all tracked separately, but the funding is all in one big pot. So that's why I included the overall expended and encumbered for the whole pot for those projects.
Which is a little low.
The encumbered and expended?
Well, the percent expended of note.
Yes.
Which is slightly concerning to try to find the rationale.
Of 8 projects, I think only 1 is currently in construction so far. So I think that's what we see with a lot of these projects that are in design and right-of-way is as we get to that construction, that's when we start to really spend the money down.
So Caitlin, I'm still unclear. What phase equates to all ARPA multimodal projects? Is it different for each project? And if it is, can you just let me know what phase they're in? Or,
I could have made that more clear. I could have provided the phase for each of those projects. I see what you're asking now.
Yeah, because I'm trying to equate 23% burn, right, expended,
Understood,
with a lack of clarity on the phase, and just making sure that we have some sort of glide path to use that money accordingly, because you don't want to overburn, you don't want to underburn, you want to burn it just right.
Yeah. And we are tracking those budgets internally. It's just hard to summarize in this sheet. It didn't really translate to this format, but I understand. I can provide the phases for that,
But overall, I think what you're trying to say, if I just leveled up, is that the phases are on track, even though that they're not specified here.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. There are the 2 yellows that I mentioned that are, one is 1 month behind and one is 2 months behind. We're hoping to still catch up to deliver those, by the original dates.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any lessons learned coming through these 18 transportation projects that we want to carry over into the future projects that we have? Because the majority of our projects in FY25 are, again, transportation.
Yes, yes is the answer. I think that's a dissertation we could write. But yeah, I
summarize.
That's what we're doing now is examining that in the new process improvements and the coordination and communication that we're trying to increase and enhance as we're incorporating those lessons learned. Yeah.
Can you summarize what they are to the public? Anything that's salient in like 10 words or less? We need to plan a little bit better. We underallocated, just give me a sense for.
It's really a lot of different layers. Some of it is changes in the federal, state, and regional
the things we can control.
Program.
Things under our control.
Yeah, I think the project management and program management improvements that we're incorporating now of increased communication and coordination, and sort of breaking down some of the internal silos that we have of departments and
the cross-integration. So cross-integration,
cross-functional coordination that we're improving now.
Got it. And then So let me pause for now, and I'll turn it to others before I ask my second set.
Okay, who else has got a question? Ms. Flynn?
I guess I'll ask a question as a follow-up to Ms. Leon. I wasn't clear from some of the chart that has all the phase, total budget expended and encumbered, and then percent expended for the ARPA funded projects. It says, expended and encumbered to date. Is the encumbered amount, is that reflecting the actual encumbered amount, or is the encumbered amount any higher? And I guess I asked just because of this December 2024 deadline for encumbering it versus the December 2026 deadline for expenditures.
It was the actual encumbered as of maybe July 16th when this staff report was due. I remember waiting because there was at least one contract that we were awarding the following week. So things could have changed in these numbers even since that.
But I guess my concern is that, let's take the however many, 6 all ARPA multimodal projects as an example, where it says total budget is 1.299 million and the expended and encumbered to date is only 304,000. So we should expect that number in terms of encumbered to date to get up to 1.3 million by the end of
December,
right?
yes.
By the calendar year.
Yes, and we're on track to do that, is my understanding.
So even
yes.
though it's saying delayed due to negotiations or issues with right-of-way, you expect all of that to be resolved with sufficient time to still encumber the funds for any bids or whatever else need to happen.
That's my understanding. And I think a more in-depth ARPA update is planned soon. Yeah.
Because I do want to make sure we're on track for that, and that, to the extent we need to repurpose anything simply because we're not going to have the time to actually encumber funds, that we're a step ahead of where we need to be, to the extent that the trajectory doesn't look promising on some things that may be turning red or have turned red or going from yellow to red. So just to be aware of it. And then the only other question I had was just in terms of, you mentioned the W and OD trail crossings, and they look great. It was really amazing work to think how quickly they actually are getting completed. Just for the public, in terms of what you still envision, when you're mentioning the lighting or the landscaping, the big reflective, barriers are still there. For example, when people are driving down Great Falls or you're coming up to the crossing on Great Falls, are those medians going to have reflectors and things on them so that people aren't crashing into the median at nighttime?
Caitlin, I can take this
Thank
one
you.
if you would like. Yes. Yeah, so the short answer is yes, council member. The contractor is going to come in, I believe it's at the end of this month. It might be towards the end of August. I can't quite remember the schedule off the top of my head, but they are going to finish up the asphalt work on the path. They're going to do the striping and signage package. Of special note, several of the crossings are going to become always stops. I'm not going to speak to which ones they are because I don't remember off the top of my head, but that will be a change. And then if we're talking overall project completion, we are looking in the fall specifically for the plantings to provide them a suitable environment to thrive and take in the ground. But if we're just talking about the hardscape and the functionality of the trail, I would guesstimate in the next few weeks that should be 99.9% done.
Okay, that's great to hear. And that answered one of my questions too about when we may anticipate seeing the stop signs. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Ms. Underhill?
Given that we do have staff turnover, do you expect further delays to the projects in the CIP?
I don't have a crystal ball. I think my answer is we are doing everything. We intend to do everything in our power to prevent that.
Okay. And then I do have a question that's, well, slightly out of scope of this document, but now seems like a good time to bring it up. We have this wonderful WNOD master plan document, and I'm wondering what it would take to get something added to the CIP as an unfunded project so that we could potentially get funding or something for a WOD master plan.
I'm sorry.
To do the plan, or?
So my understanding is that if something's not in the CIP, it's very hard to get funding for it. And in 2017, maybe it was 2016, the planning department created a wonderful master plan for the WNOD trail. It included benches and exercise stations and other things like that. And I'm wondering what it would take to, I think it was in the CIP at one point, I don't know.
I was just seeking clarification.
Sure.
Did you want a new plan or to implement the plan
Implement,
further?
yeah, so that,
Okay.
that plan never came to fruition. And so before it gets forgotten about, I would like to know how it's possible to add something into the CIP, even as an unfunded project.
Well, I would say, this crossings project was envisioned in that plan, and it's the reason it happened. The dual trails was in that plan, and that's the reason it happened. So I think that has been a very fruitful planning exercise. With any plan, there's always reality intervenes, and plans often get changed as they go through the design process or when we're working with the Northern Virginia Parks Authority, et cetera. So I would think that for additional WNOD projects, that would be through the CIP process, and we would be looking at that as we're putting the CIP together next spring.
Okay, so that would be during the springtime.
That's right. I mean, we put it together really
Starting
in the
really
December,
in,
fall.
starting in a couple months. So, I think we talked about this before. So the exercise equipment, it's my understanding, was originally in the scope of another WNOD project and then was not, it was cut from the scope ultimately. So I think we need to revisit that to see what we can do to get the exercise equipment included in a different project. We do have some projects that are adopted but unfunded for plazas, additional plaza space and park space along the WNOD. So we can look into that this year and how to get those, implemented.
Great, thank you.
Mary Beth?
Thanks for this, Caitlin. I have one specific question that leads to a second question, and that is towards the bottom of section 58, sort of above 59, it says crosswalks and ramps. And I've seen a lot of ramps go in around the city in different places. Are those crosswalks? I'm assuming the crosswalks are coming next. Because they're just ramps that go into
I might have to look for Zach
asphalt.
to help me out with that one, or Tara. They both would know.
Yeah, I got that one, Caitlin. So the short answer is yes. So the contractor, and almost all of our projects will always install the ramps first, and then the striping and signage is usually done by a subcontractor. So once they're through the city, they've gotten all of those done, that subcontractor will then come back and install the remaining signage and ramps. I will note in some areas of the city, the signs have gone up. For council's awareness, the contractor has put the signs up in multiple wrong spots where crosswalks are not going. So that has been a bit of a thing recently, in case anybody has heard about that. But the point of that is to say that that subcontractor is in town working on the signage and striping.
Okay, so you have July 2024 as the end date? You think they're going to be done this month?
The date I had was, I think, July 29th.
Okay.
So,
we think that'll happen. Okay, I was just thinking about the first day of school, and some of those are routes to school along Sharrow there, and it would be nice to have crosswalks.
I will note we are doing everything we can to have them done before school. There is some rework that has to happen. There's some non-compliant ramps and sections that have to be redone. Not at our expense, it's at the contractor's expense. So we're currently working to schedule that. But it does appear will be done before school. I don't want to promise July 31st, right now, but it is looking good. We'll be done before school.
Great, thank you. And then my other question is just, you know, we've talked about, and it was in Ms. Mester's council request last week, about a list of sidewalks coming and crosswalks coming, and is there a way to tie some of that to the CIP so that crosswalks and ramps is there's a lot of them. Where are they all? So that if we're asking questions about a specific street, Lawton Street, how does it fit into here?
I think we've aimed to sort of chip away some of those projects with the crosswalks and ramps, with the ARPA funding and with some of the other sort of single crosswalk and sidewalk projects we've included in the CIP. As far as the update on the full sidewalk list, I don't have that information.
So I'll take that one again, Caitlin. So staff is working diligently on putting together, for lack of a better word, a memo to council that will explain our prioritization process for sidewalks, as well as the current missing links list. That list is going to be, maybe it's from residents calling in, maybe their previous council requests, maybe their staff identified needs, whatever it may be. So council will get both of those parts. That will come later in summer. Right now, we do have kind of a working list. If council would like a specific, we can handle those in a one-off case through the question process. But I would ask council just to bear with us a little bit longer, and we'll have that list over to you.
That's great. I don't want to do a one-off. I'd much rather have the whole thing to be able to take a look at it. Thank you.
Great. Well, I have some questions and comments as well. So I love this update. You know that the quarterly CIP updates are one of my favorites because I think on behalf of the community, this is really where people see results, right? They see their tax dollars at work. And so for Public Works to put those little yard signs out saying, hey, coming soon is those crosswalks. I've got a lot of comments from people. They're like, this is great because people get excited and they can see real progress across the city. So thank you for that. I will start with project-specific questions, and then Caitlin, I'll get to kind of the process improvement feedback you were looking for. So on the WNOD, along the lines of what Ms. Flynn asked about, that's great that we're going to make progress. I have gotten lots of positive feedback that those darn yellow bollards are gone now because there were so many near crashes between the pedestrians and the cyclists. So that really has been really speedy project. I would make a request while we've got our communications director in the audience that the four-way stops will be a really big behavior change for both motorists as well as cyclists. And so let's start thinking now about the public education campaign for that, depending on where those intersections are. Likewise, the hawk signals are heavily anticipated. We've talked about those for years. That's another really big change for motorists, especially ones who are coming through the region and not used to it. So this seems like a really good opportunity to talk about how much we value transportation safety in Falls Church and really educate the community on both those big changes that they'll see on our streets. So that's my first comment. Second, on EV chargers, I met with Dominion, our government relations rep, last week, and there might be an opportunity to partner with them. And so I'm looking at Ms. Mester on whether we might look to them for funding or partnership on, but that's an offer they had made to me as a way to support Falls Church. Parklets. So that looks like, after long delays, that we are finally making progress, and we're looking forward to those getting underway and opening maybe this fall and winter. I had asked whether the EDA wanted to start the naming process for those, so similar to what we did with Mr. Brown's Park. I know it goes through the Planning Commission and Historical Commission, so that might be something that we want to start with EDO staff starting this fall, just so we can get through all the various meetings and referrals out. So that would be a suggestion for something the EDA and others take up this fall. West Falls Church, so the intersection and new lights at Haycock as well as Mustang Alley has been really slow. I think originally we talked about it being last year, and now I think when I read the update, it sounds like it's October 2024, so it'll be 2 months after school starts. Is that our best guess at this point, or do we think it'll be even later?
That's the information I currently have, yeah.
I know that the schools regularly meet with the construction teams there, but if we could just do some planning on safety again for students, because it continues to be pretty messy there. I was running at the track over the weekend, and it's still quite a mess for both residents and people getting to Metro and then getting to school. So extra attention there would be helpful. A general question, for the yellow and red items, I think Ms. Leon asked this as well, are the general reasons why we have yellow and red not because of budget, but because of right-of-way acquisition, lead times? Like, what are the themes that you're seeing, and then where can we help?
On this current update, yes, I would say schedule delays due to right-of-way negotiations was a recurring one, I think. We met, staff met and discussed that extensively, and as far as some ways to mitigate that. And then just those legacy projects where we've had many schedule delays that there is no recovering that schedule now. We can, a couple of those are in construction. We're looking at, getting those finished and complete, but there's just no, I mean, I wouldn't feel honest calling that a green project at this point, right? So, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not hearing a specific ask of council on how we can help with right-of-ways or lead time issues. Is there, because that's, I think, our job up here is to help figure out where we can remove roadblocks for y'all, right?
Right. Yeah, I think at this time, no, there's no specific request.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the offer's there. So moving on to kind of process improvement. So being a former PM and managing PMOs, I think the dashboard is evolving nicely. In terms of what I think is helpful from what I think constituents often ask us is people want to know three things: where projects are happening, when is it going to be inconvenient for them, and when is it going to be done. So that status comm to me is probably the most important and most valuable, because people want to know, like, when's the street going to be closed? When's my sidewalk going to be inaccessible? When am I going to see this great new Hawk signal that's been talked about? So that one I think continues to be helpful. For me, other than the ARPA dollar ones, the budget stuff's a little less important. I mean, you can include in there because I think it's helpful to understand burn rate, but that's not something that is super critical for me personally. I think the status would be helpful. I would request, though, given that we have 6 months left to expend or encumber remaining ARPA dollars, that we still have that ARPA-specific report that I think Ms. Bawa includes in the CFO's update. So I think that's still a really important thing to get, at least for the next 2 quarters or so, as we look toward that December 2024. But overall, I think really appreciate the internal process improvements that get to this point, because I do know that managing across teams and silos and really trying to get to coordination and resolving issues across departments really is the way to kind of get projects expedited and through the process. So I know it's a little clunky, but we really appreciate the team's work on this and getting us to this point and delivering a lot more projects out for the community, because I think people are really seeing the difference and seeing the output from City Hall. So thank you.
Good. Thank you.
Oh, Ms. Leon's got one more.
I do. I noticed, good news, that we're at 60% design for 3 stormwater projects. We're saying that we're going to hit 60% design for Hillwood number 2 in July, and 60% design in August of 24 for Sharrow Avenue and greening of Lincoln. And then we've got Lincoln Avenue roadbed reconstruction. So I just want to help me understand the process. Do you run those changes or loop the Public Utilities Commission when you hit 60% design? Like, who do you share that with?
I'm not sure. Tara or Zach, are you aware of where the 60% designs will be? Are they being shared?
So I can't speak in like super specifics or anything, but what I can say is that the Public Utilities Commission has had these projects presented to them. I believe it was at 30%, might have been 15. I honestly can't remember right now, but they have been presented, and I know our lead PM on that, Mr. Dudley, is planning on going back and giving them an update to kind of let them know where everything has fallen, how we've addressed the comments, particularly on greening of Lincoln, how the public engagement has gone, so on and so forth. So the PUC does get periodic updates on those projects.
That's super helpful, Zach. I think it's really important that we keep, good to know that communication has been happening, and that we plan to do it when we hit 60%, particularly also on the greening of Lincoln, which has a lot of public interest. And I know Debbie is the lead for the Public Utilities Commission, so just making sure that she's also looped in on when that is going to hit the agenda would be great. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Opsey. Council requests. Do we have requests for the city manager and staff? I'm not seeing any. I think our weekly Friday process seems to be working well then, I guess. Thank you. Okay, well, let's move on to business on the agenda then. Madam Clerk, can you call the items?
Yes, on first reading, we have TO 24-08, ordinance to amend the text of City Code Chapter 35, Stormwater, Article 1, Stormwater Management to meet the Virginia Erosion and Stormwater Management regulations set by the Virginia Department of Environmental Quality.
And so we are joined by Mr. Keith Lay, who's our stormwater engineer, and he will give tonight's presentation. Since the council last met with Mr. Keith Lay on this item, he has been with the Public Utilities Commission and with the Urban Forestry Commission to brief them on these stormwater ordinance updates. What we're asking tonight is for council to grant first reading for this and to schedule a public hearing and final consideration of this item at your meeting in September. Mr. Keith Lay, with that brief introduction, thank you for your good work on this ordinance, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Wyatt. Good evening, Mayor Letty Hardy, member of council. I'm sharing my screen. So DEQ recently requested all of the Virginia localities to consolidate the existing stormwater management and erosion sediment control code into one code, stormwater management code. So the City Council is requested to adopt state-mandated update to City Code Chapter 35, Stormwater. There are 4 main changes that impact property owners in the city. The first one is a new restriction against removal of vegetation in a resource protection area, especially the mature trees. This is state mandate, so this is mandatory. The second one is assessment of climate change and sea level impact assessment in the resource protection area. Again, this is also state mandate. The third one and the fourth one, we are asking council to have an option to accept. So the third one is we are asking treatment of single family house tear down and rebuild. Currently, we are treating them as a new development. We are asking council to consider the redevelopment as a redevelopment under the water quality standard. The fourth one is we are asking to use updated or recently developed stormwater IDF curve other than NOAA Atlas. That is the 4 changes we are asking council to adopt. So I'm starting defining by resource protection area. So the resource protection area is a 100-foot buffer on either side of the perennial stream, measured from the top of the stream bank, 100 feet on both sides. So by far, the RPA, the most restriction we have on our code for development. There are 10 RPA locations. As you can see, the bubble areas, those are the 10 locations in the city that we call RPAs. There are 175 structures, including single family homes and commercial buildings. So the 2 changes for development in the RPA, as I mentioned earlier, the first one is a restriction of removal of mature tree in the RPA. The second one is addition of new climate change and sea level impact assessment in the RPA. So DEQ provided data that we can use to see if the development is impacted by sea level rise, storm surge, and flooding. So by far, we think flooding is the most relevant to the city based on updated special flood hazard area. So DEQ again provided a website, an interactive map, so a developer, engineer, reviewer can go to that interactive map and check if the development is impacted by sea level rise, stormwater surge, and flooding. The third one we are asking council is optional. It's not required by the state, but this is in our code. So currently we are treating single-family development, which is tear down and rebuild, as a new development. We are asking to change the treatment of single-family house from new development to redevelopment. So DEQ provided 2 methods to calculate the phosphorus and nitrogen pollution reduction from development. The first one is new development, the second one is the redevelopment. So there are 2 spreadsheets prepared for those 2 kind of development. So currently we are using a new development for single family house. So this section of the code is for specifically for water quality, reducing phosphorus and nitrogen from the impervious area after development. So most of the projects meet the water quantity and a portion of a water quality requirement. But to meet the higher standard water quality requirement, most of the single family house, they go out and purchase off-site nutrient credit because we are asking them to meet the higher standard, which is 0.41 pound per year. They cannot exceed that. Any excess amount needs to be go off-site and purchase, in addition to having stormwater management on-site. There are 2 tables just for comparison using a new development spreadsheet on the left and redevelopment spreadsheet on the right. There are 3 properties we are considering. If you see the phosphorus reduction requirement for a new development, it's a higher standard for the requirement is higher. If you see property A, for new development, we are asking them to reduce 0.2 pound per year. But if you see for the redevelopment, the reduction requirement is lower than 0.22, which is 0.1147. And if you see again the property A for new development, they use stormwater management, which is BMP on site, and they reduce almost half of the phosphorus reduction on site by using stormwater management facilities, whether infiltration trench, planter box, bioretention. They use that to reduce the phosphorus reduction amount. But because we are asking them a higher standard, which is a new development, the reduction is not made by using a stormwater management facility. So they go outside and buy the additional phosphorus reduction from off-site nutrient credit purchase. So if you see the first one, they need to go out and buy the 0.09 phosphorus from somewhere in Virginia from nutrient bank to meet the stormwater management requirement. But if you see the right one, if we treat them as a redevelopment, they can meet the reduction by only using stormwater management on site. And if you see the first one, the requirement is 0.1147, and installing a stormwater management on site, they already made the requirement. So no need to go outside and buy off-site nutrient credit purchase. So that is just example for 3 properties. So recently, starting from 2023, city claimed extra phosphorus nitrogen removal resulting from a new development policy in our MS4 annual report. In 2023, again, the DEQ come back to us and ask us how we calculate the phosphorus reduction for single family house, and they know we are using a new development method. So when we use a new development method, this is assuming the existing condition is forest, open space, or vacant. But as you can see, most of the single-family house in the city of Falls Church, for a tear down and rebuild, there is already impervious area like driveway, roof, garage on the existing condition. So we are inconsistent with the state requirement for using new development because it is not open space or grass in the existing condition. So the state said we cannot use any longer the new development method to calculate the phosphorus and nitrogen requirement for single family house. So that's one of the reasons we are asking council to move from new development to redevelopment. According to city, we have been recalculating the phosphorus requirement going back to 2019 all the way to 2023 based on DEQ request. So we are asking council to consider most of the single family house when they buy the off-site nuisance credits purchase to meet the water quality requirement, they are spending more money and we don't get a benefit out of it. In addition to that, we are having more work to do the recalculation to satisfy DEQ's request. The fourth one we are asking council to consider is to use updated local rainfall curve. Currently in our code, we are using NOAA Atlas IDF curve, intensity, duration, frequency curve, which is a tool most designer reviewer use to get the rainfall data for design. That is where we go and grab the rainfall data to design stormwater management facilities. So we know that NOAA Atlas 14 is based on historic record, and I saw some presentation in the last data they have in Virginia is 2000. So after that, we all know that how much the climate change rainfall data is changed. So all of the NOAA Atlas is based on historical records, and we are seeing very high and extreme rainfall events. So because of that, we need to move. We need to find some way to predict the future. IDF curve that project the future is not only based on the historical records. So other jurisdiction also looking for other alternative other than NOAA because it's based on historic data. So we are looking for another alternative. We propose to use projected intensity duration curve prepared by NOAA Mid-Atlantic Regional Integrated in Science Assessment. We call it MRISA. They have very precise information tailored to for all specific area, including City of Falls Church. They have a IDF curve. They have rainfall data that project not only the past but also the future. So I have the IDF curve for projected IDF curve for from MRISA just to compare with NOAA Atlas 14 IDF curve. The orange one you see is the NOAA Atlas. The blue one is from projected IDF curve from MRISA. As you can see, the IDF curve for NOAA is 4.85. It's apologize, it's very small. The number are very small, but NOAA is 4.85 and IDF curve for projected is 5.33 inch. So we are seeing more intensity projected in the future. So this tool will help the city plan and prepare for impacts from climate change. At the same time, DEQ wants all of the jurisdiction to use to utilize a model or forecast developed by on behalf of the Commonwealth. So we are using that language from DEQ so we can justify that we can go out and use the model and forecast prepared on behalf of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The last slide is just to show the comparison between stormwater ordinance and the city MS4 TMDL requirements. So our MS4 is general MS4 contains a Chesapeake with total maximum daily load. There is a special condition that requires the city to reduce quantity of pollutant of concern, especially nitrogen and phosphorus. So DEQ gave the city 3 5-year cycles starting from 2013 up to 2028. So by 2028, we need to meet all of the nitrogen and phosphorus requirements set by DEQ. All MS4 permit operation in Virginia, Virginia's Chesapeake Bay watershed, including the city, are required to address both existing pollutant load from urban land as of July 1, 2009, and new pollutant loads from development occurred after July 1, 2019. So new laws are addressed through the city's implementation of Virginia Stormwater Management Program. The city apply any pollutant reduction achieved through private development to meet the existing load reduction. So all of the commercial one we are having in the city, the redevelopment reduction method. So we have no issues with them. So we can use all of the phosphorus, nitrogen we get from the commercial site as it is without modifying it. The issue is on a single family house. We can't use all of the phosphorus, nitrogen we get from a single family development. That's why we are treating single family house from new development to redevelopment, so we can use all of the credit we get for our MS4 purposes. So while redevelopment provide a tool to assist the city in meeting a Chesapeake Bay TMDL pollutant reduction requirement, it cannot be utilized as a city's sole means of attaining compliance with the EQ. So we use all of the single family house development, redevelopment, a CIP project to collect the phosphorus and nitrogen, but we still need to explore other means and methods to meet the phosphorus and nitrogen reduction requirement by 2028. So the ordinance by itself is not completely fulfilling the requirement. So we need to have other alternative to meet the requirement. In terms of timing, we had a city council work session on July 1st. Last Wednesday, we have a successful discussion with PUC's Public Utilities Commission. We had also a successful discussion with Urban Forestry Commission on the same day. Today's City Council first reading, September 9, we are asking Council to have a public hearing and second reading. That is all I have, and thank you for your time. And if you have any question, you're welcome, please.
Great. Well, thank you for recapping this. From the 2 meetings that you had presented at, were there any changes or recommendations from those 2 boards?
Both of them are supporting all of the changes. We spend more time on the optional one because the mandatories are already, they are mandatory, but the 2 options, they are supporting to move forward. And we give them time to read it, discuss it, and we are waiting feedback on both of them so we can collect their feedback and incorporate into the city code.
Okay. Do we have questions or comments? Connolly.
I just want to say thank you for all of that information. It is super helpful to those of us that are not experts in this area to have an expert in this area on staff. So thank you for that. And if you go to can you go to the slide, Sophie, that has the 4 options, the 4 So if I put this into layperson's language, there are 2 changes. And I think back up one more. Nope. It's at the very beginning, I think. It's okay.
Is it
There we
on?
go. Here we are.
Oh, all right.
So the
Sorry
first 2
about
are state mandates. We don't have any choice. The second one, on first blush, seems like we're lessening the standards. The third one does. But then the fourth one tightens up the standards, and we're able to do that because we've reduced the water quality standards in the third one. Does that simplify that pretty much?
Yeah, we are lessening the water quality requirement for a single-family house.
Right.
But at the same time, we don't get a benefit from the water quality requirement they buy from offsite. We are just asking to reconsider, because in my understanding, when we adopted this code back in 2014, they want to put the higher standard, a more stringent water quality requirement for single-family house.
Okay.
And we have been claiming until 2019, but DEQ rejected the method we use, and now we are asking to go back to redevelopment method.
And is any of this retroactive to 2014 or 2019? Or is it just a going forward?
This, if we are moving toward this, we are not going back, and we just need to move forward after we adapt this code.
Great, thank you.
Are there questions or comments? Ms. Flynn?
Thank you again. I just have 2 questions or comments. In the attachment with the further explanation to some of our comments and questions from the work session, it looked as though it confirmed that there are approximately 175 structures in the RPA, so 138 single-family homes, 16 commercial properties, and 21 townhouses. And so there are no changes to the structures in or out of the RPA, similar to what we dealt with the floodplain ordinance. But I guess my question for this one is that even though the state mandated requirements don't kick in until any potential redevelopment or disturbance of those properties, do we still anticipate giving notification to the parcels that have those 175 structures, just so that they are aware of the code change that was mandated by the state?
Yes, we are working with our administrative assistants. We are preparing a letter, printing out the staff report. We are already in the process. We thought we would send it today, but we were busy. So we are anticipating to send a notification for all of those 175 property owners, just to notify them this is coming, even though they are not impacted right away. So we are planning to send out the notification letter probably this week.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then we had significant kind of conversation on the redevelopment, new development standards. And I guess my question was on lines 138 through 152 of the staff report. So I understand, moving from new development standard to redevelopment standard, where DEQ is sort of telling us we should be doing so when we're the only outlier jurisdiction in the state. But it does look as though on lines 144 to 152, that for redevelopment on a parcel, that we would apply the redevelopment standard of the 10% to the current impervious coverage. But to the extent that land disturbing activities result in a net increase in impervious coverage, which, does occur where we have larger lots, for example, with smaller homes, and then they're redeveloped, so we have much larger coverage on the same lot once there are larger homes built on that lot. This makes me think that we'll actually be applying sort of a hybrid calculation, that it's a 10% reduction as to the pre-existing impervious coverage, but then we would actually apply the new development standard as to any increase in impervious coverage. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. So if we treat them as a redevelopment, if they are not increasing the impervious area, we require them to reduce the phosphorus reduction by 10% than the pre-development condition. But if they are increasing the impervious area, the additional increased impervious area would go to the new requirement, which is the 0.41 pound per year requirement. So the redevelopment spreadsheet is already built in these formulas into it. But you are right, the 10% is only for existing impervious area. So any increment will go to the new requirement, which is 0.41.
Okay, and so then my follow-up question to that is that somewhere in this report, it references, the new development standards being hard to attain, which was part of the issues, I guess, with the nutrient credit reductions or buying the nutrient credit reductions, and the cost estimates of $27,000 to $30,000 per pound of the reduced amount. So to the extent that lots are being redeveloped and they cannot reach the new development standards, who is then bearing the cost of those purchases to the extent that any purchases can or have to be made?
Yes, so as at the current code, we are putting a higher standard, treating the existing condition as a vacant lot, grass. And if we assume that, the requirement will be 0.41, which is a higher standard. So to meet that, they go out and buy off-site nuisance credit purchase. But actually, most of the tear down and rebuild, there is already existing impervious area. So from that, we are only asking them to reduce by 10%. Imagine assuming all of the impervious area, post-development impervious area as a new impervious area. But it is not. There is already existing impervious area. So the existing one should be treated or should be reduced by 10% than the pre-development condition. But any increment area should go to the new requirement. So it is already built in the spreadsheet. So it's already calculated in the redevelopment VRM method.
Right. So I guess my question, though, goes more to if there's a difference between the pre-development conditions and the post-development conditions. So say a lot is going from 25% overall impervious coverage to 35% overall impervious coverage. Do you anticipate under the hybrid calculation where 25% of that would be subject to the redevelopment standard and the remaining 10% would be subject to the new development standard, that the developer or the owner would be able to accomplish that delta on site? And to the extent that anyone has to purchase any nutrient credit because they're not able to actually accomplish the reduction on site, does someone pay for that, and who pays for that?
So for that additional, the homeowner pay for that just to meet the requirement. And we think the extra money they spent by going and buy off-site nutrient credit purchase to meet the higher standard is wasted. We are not getting any benefit out of it, and they are not benefiting out of it. And DEQ, we are not taking a credit for that excess nutrient credit. So I think that is need to be considered because moving forward, DEQ already say we cannot use that. So it's just money will be wasted and more work for us to recalculate the phosphorus by using the redevelopment spreadsheet, and that is more burden for us.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Ms. Underhill?
So that I understand, to follow on that line of questioning, so if someone, a homeowner, buys that off-site nutrient credit, that doesn't necessarily benefit Falls Church, but does it benefit the greater Chesapeake Bay, even though we don't necessarily see the direct benefit in Falls Church?
So DEQ has a hierarchy that a developer can go out and buy phosphorus. And City of Falls Church, there is no nearby one. And in the past, we didn't follow that hierarchy because we didn't know the rule. But once we know the hierarchy, we find that even in the past, when they go out and buy the nutrient credit, that bank is outside of the watershed that City of Falls Church is located. So it's not even helping directly to reduce the water quality in Potomac River. But if you think the entire Chesapeake Bay, yes, it does. But if you see 4 Miles Run or Trips Run and Potomac River, it's not directly contributing a reduction to that stream. But if you see overall, yes, as a Chesapeake Bay watershed, there is a reduction of phosphorus if you see the entire watershed.
I see. So there is a potential regional benefit, even though Falls Church doesn't necessarily see that directly. So I guess to that point, I'm on the fence about that option, which is option 3. Only because I do think that even if it doesn't directly benefit Falls Church, I do care about the region as a whole and not just what's going on inside of our borders. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
One thing I would note is we were going through the numbers, the amount of phosphorus that gets reduced from the city is significantly more with our commercial redevelopments than it has been historically for our single-family homes. So that's where the biggest bang for the buck has been. I think that's worthy of some consideration as well.
So along the same lines, I remember in our last work session, I think Zach had talked about the realities that we really can't achieve the higher new development standards and that we were the outlier in the way we classified it. But are there any downsides with keeping the higher standards other than the cost to the property owner and having to buy credits that may or may not directly benefit us?
Maybe Bahalu can certainly speak to this better than I can. Yeah. I'll let him speak.
Thank you, Wyatt. The other downside is we are every time average we receive 20 to 25 grading plan per year, and at the end of the fiscal year, we are going through each single family house development and develop a redevelopment spreadsheet for each of them just to recalculate to comply with DEQ. So that is more work in addition to preparing the stormwater MS4 report. That has been more work for us for a couple of years. So that is one downside, other than residents throw money that we never get a credit out of it. We don't get any benefit out of it, but they spend more money to meet the water quality requirement as we treat them a new development.
I'll add on to that. Sorry, I'm turning my camera on. I'll add on to that. Right, single-family houses aside, this is applicable to kind of a zoning area as well. So if we're talking about whether it's more affordable housing, missing middle, whatever terminology you want to use, it does drive up that cost, right? We're not talking huge sums of money, right? But we are talking probably $5,000 to $10,000 additional onto a house. So that's probably the biggest financial impact. But I will second everything Mr. Keefley just said as well.
If I want to add to that, so most of the time, engineers who prepare a grading plan for a single-family house in the city of Falls Church, they assume or they think we are the same as other local jurisdictions. They assume that, and they use a redevelopment spreadsheet methodologies. And by the time they submit the grading plan, we ask them to redo all of that. So that is also creating a confusion between engineers and developers. And we, as the reviewers, it's giving more confusion because other jurisdictions are using the redevelopment except us in the entire Virginia.
Got it. Okay. Other final questions, comments? I think you're looking for us to take action with first reading tonight.
Yeah, can I make a motion?
Sure.
I move to grant first reading to TO 24-08, schedule second reading and public hearing for September 9th, 2024, and advertise the same according to law.
We have a second.
Second.
Ms. Leanne on the second. Madam Clerk, can you call roll, please?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Leanne?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6 to 0. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. We're ready to move on. Thank you, Mr. Keefley, for joining us and all the work on this. Let's move on to TR 24-26.
Yes, we have a resolution of the City Council of the City of Falls Church approving the city's participation in the proposed settlement of opioid-related claims against Kroger Company and its related corporate entities, and directing the city attorney to execute the documents necessary to effectuate the city's participation in the settlement.
Thank you, Council. This item before you has been seen by Council before, and this is the action evening move to adopt the resolution before you. This resolution would allow the City of Falls Church to participate in the settlement agreement that is kind of concerning opioid litigation. It's an aggregation of litigation that's been participated in by many states, but the state of Virginia has opted to participate in this settlement, and every locality in Virginia that opts to participate will get a proportionate share of the monies that go to the state of Virginia. In exchange for participating, the city is required to waive all of its claims against Kroger Company in this case, and fill out some other forms that are due by August 12th to the state. That would then entitle you to an amount of money that we don't know just yet, but historically those amounts are maybe $3,000 a year, maybe over a period of 5 years, and could be less, could be more, but that's what we've seen in other cases. So with that, that concludes my comments, and I turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, for discussion. Thank you.
Any questions or comments for the city attorney? Ms. Connolly?
Ms. Gillette, is there any requirement as to how that money from the settlement should be spent? Does it have to be spent on opioid-related solutions.
Yes, it does have to be spent on opioid-related expenses to the city, and our finance department works with other agencies within the city to ensure that occurs and to keep track of the accounting.
Mr. Snyder?
Thank you. At our work session, I asked the city attorney about the impact of a major bankruptcy proceeding settlement that was rejected, I think, for the producers of the opioids. And I'm wondering, Madam City Attorney, if you could just provide the answer to that on the record. Thank you.
Sure, thank you for asking. The bankruptcy ruling that was recently handed down affected Purdue Pharmaceuticals and the Sackler family, and does not affect this particular settlement, which involves only Kroger Company.
Thank you.
Ms. Leon, did you have something?
Just to confirm, there's 2 settlements?
This resolution addresses only one, but there are multiple settlements with the various sellers of opioids. This one is Kroger Company. It's a grocery store chain, which had a pharmacy component. But there's other settlements that we've already agreed to enter into and participate in, and there's probably at least one more to come because the Purdue Pharma has not circulated yet.
Got it. And so it's one settlement, and when we talk about the settlement, this will pay over time if it goes through, right? So this is...
That's how I've seen the others structured, that money is paid over time.
Okay, thank you.
I don't see any other questions or comments. Anybody have a motion?
Motion
This is a
to-
resolution, not an ordinance, right?
Oh.
Correct.
That's correct.
Okay. Oh, Dave, you still have your hand up?
Yeah, just one quick question for the city. Do we know what our total costs as a result of the opioid tragedy that we have? You don't need an answer to that tonight, but I'm also very interested in a very aggressive stance against the manufacturers of these toxic materials that have done so much devastation to our country. So I'll be interested in how aggressive we can be in the future, but I certainly support this resolution tonight. Madam Mayor, do you want me to move to adopt the resolution, or does someone else want to do that?
You're welcome to, Mr. Snyder. I don't see any other.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt TR 24-26.
We have a second?
Second.
Ms. Conley in the second. Madam Clerk, please.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Leanne?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to TO 24-13.
Yes, we have TO 24-13, ordinance authorizing the city manager to provide monetary bonuses to employees.
Welcome.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. So staff recommends that council grant first reading to TO 24-13 and schedule a public hearing and second reading for August 12th, 2024. Since we came before you last, so the staff recognizes the need to compensate the exemplary service delivered by city employees and to offer incentives, bonuses to assist in the recruitment and retention of employees. City manager is requesting authorization to establish bonus programs to address a variety of needs, including recruitment, retention, and performance. Bonuses may be provided to employees in accordance with applicable administrative directives and guidelines. A bonus shall be defined as a lump sum payment to an employee that is not part of the base salary. And, following up some of our discussion from last time to clarify things, this ordinance would grant the city manager authority to implement bonus programs, which would be administered according to adopted administrative regulations. This council action would not approve any specific bonus program. So we've, again, in the staff report, provided some examples of existing administrative regulations as well as some other potential programs that we are discussing. Council asked some questions last time about the history of funding for bonuses with city staff. So of the 3 administrative regulations on the books, the performance reward program has not been used at least since 2015. The referral bonus program is used approximately 2 times a year, and it's $275 per instance. And the Employee of the Year is an annual program that we do. It's $1,800, per one employee per year. We have had a year, I think last year, where we had 2 employees get Employee of the Year. And so, as you all are aware, the city is currently undergoing a review of all of its administrative regulations, and will review each of these bonus-related programs as part of that process. And feedback that council provided at the July 1st session will be taken into consideration when reviewing those administrative regulations and the development of any new bonus programs. So with that, I'll take any questions you all have.
Great, thank you, Mr. Young. Questions or comments? It's an easy night for you all.
I maybe have 2.
Okay.
So just because, I guess just looking at the history of the funding, so I just had 2 questions. When, in a program like this, when you do the administrative regulations and you budget for the program, is it run like all through the city manager's office, or is there coordination, for example, between the city clerk and the city attorney and the elected, like the constitutional offices? Like, how does that relate at all? Like, does everyone within the organization qualify the same way for the program, or are there steps that we would need to ensure take place, or you, through coordination with those other offices, for example, or employees or constitutional officers, would need to coordinate to like make the program cross the entirety of the organization?
So a bonus program would be spelled out in administrative regulations and then administered by the city's Human Resources Department, really not the city manager's office. So the constitutional officers, they elect typically to follow the city's administrative regulations voluntarily. And so by doing so, they comply with the rules, but then also allows them to be eligible for programs like this. Then the direct appointees, any kind of monetary bonus that would be provided to your appointees, that has to be done by the city council.
But everything flows through the ARs to the employees of, the employees of the constitutional officers, for example, are employees of the city through HR. So they would qualify the same way, or, within the clerk's
They
office.
would.
Or
Let's
within the city
maybe,
attorney's
for
office.
tonight's purposes, put the constitutionals in a little bit of a special case because they are unique. They are constitutional offices, and so they are, in some respects, separate. So this is really geared for the employees that are directly with, under the city manager's ultimate direction and administered by HR. The constitutionals generally can participate because if they sign an MOU to follow the city's administrative regulations. I hope that's not too much information, but that's the basic idea.
And then sort of in terms of the budget, for example, is the budget for the bonus program housed where?
So that would depend per program. For instance, the Employee of the Year, that's in the HR budget. And the other ones that we're talking about, those may be in, for instance, in Public Works, because we're talking about CDL drivers. And so that would be in their budget. But the rules by which they expend it would be promulgated by HR.
Okay. So the broad takeaway is that basically setting aside the actual constitutional officers, any city employee regardless of their boss, so to speak, would be eligible for this program in terms of the way that we envision it
That's right.
at first reading. Okay.
And the sort of the checks and balances are on it is HR would approve it and administer it, but then finance and payroll, they confirm everything. And so no check ever gets written unless the documentation is correct and et cetera. And finance has that ultimate control responsibility.
Okay, other questions or comments? Otherwise, we'll take a motion.
I move to grant first reading to TO 24-13, schedule a public hearing and second reading for August 12th, 2024, and advertise the same according to law.
Second.
Ms. Leon on the second. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Leanne?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
And Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, council.
Let's move on to the consent agenda, and I think we might have one amendment to it, right? Is there anyone who wants to take anything off the consent agenda tonight?
I would, Madam Mayor. I'd like to take the appointment of John Lawrence to the Northern Virginia Juvenile Detention Commission off of the consent agenda.
Okay. Do we want to discuss that now or put a pin in it and then we'll get back to it after the consent?
I think that comes after the consent items on the agenda.
Anyone else? I know we looked at all these during the work session last week. It's a big set. Okay, otherwise, we have a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Motion to adopt the consent agenda.
Second?
I'll second.
Ms. Underhill in the second. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Leanne?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. And on to items removed from consent.
Yep, that's 8A for Mr. Lawrence's appointment to the NVJDC.
Would you like me to explain?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Lawrence, when he interviewed, was interviewing for an unexpired term that expires December 31st, 2024. Rather than have to re-interview him and reappoint him after having only served for 5 months, we would like to appoint him to the next term of January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2028. So we wanted to point to a five months and then an additional 3-year term. And this has been a very hard position to fill, so we're very grateful that Mr. Lawrence is involved and really actively interested in serving on this commission.
Should I also add that statutorily for this appointment, the members and the alternate shall be appointed after consultation with the chief judge of the Juvenile and Domestic Relations District Court by the governing body, and we received confirmation from the Director of Court Services that did give us that confirmation from the chief judge regarding this appointment. So I think that makes sense to also include here. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And thank you, Mr. Lawrence. Any questions or comments on that modification?
Nope. Okay. Okay, so I will move to appoint John Lawrence to the Northern Virginia Juvenile Detention Commission to fill the remainder of the unexpired term ending December 31st, 2024, and the next term of January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2028.
Second.
Ms. Flynn on the second. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Ms. Flynn?
Yes.
Ms. Leanne?
Yes.
Mr. Snyder?
Yes.
Ms. Underhill?
Yes.
Mayor Hardy?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Lawrence.
Great. Do we have other business not on the agenda? Standing Regional Committee Council reports. Council comments. I think we're all determined to get out of here before 10. Okay, we have a really good set of minutes. I was reliving some 2021 days. Gosh. It was a blast from the past. Anyone have comments on the set of minutes?
Do we have to do these individually?
No, you can do them together.
Oh. I move to approve the minutes of the previous meetings. February 22nd, 2021, April 26th, 2021, May 10th, 2021, and May 28th, 2024. With the slight changes that council members have provided to the clerk.
Second.
Ms. Leon on the second. All in favor? Any noes or abstentions?
I'll abstain because I wasn't there for the 3 meetings.
Ms. Underhill's abstaining from A, B, and C, for the record. I think I heard the ayes, though. Have it for everything else. Okay. Any other business for tonight? Okay, well, I think we're going to adjourn. Do we have a motion to adjourn, and we'll see everyone in August 5th?
Move to adjourn.
All righty, good night, all. Thank you.
Thank you, council.